Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for the Research and Health Forum. I want to introduce to you Dr. Dalton, one of our candidates here for the LSU System President. But before we jump on in, I want to thank Dr. Kerwin and his team at Pennington for having us here today. Dr. Kerwin, a few words?
Thank you, Courtney, and welcome, everybody. Welcome, Dr. Dalton. I see you're pumped. You're ready to go. I saw you jump that step.
It'll be a lot easier to jump down than it was to jump up.
Yeah. So they say. Okay, well, welcome to Pennington, everybody, and we are truly honored to have you all here today. On behalf of the 600 faculty and staff that represent Pennington, I'd love for you all to see and appreciate what we've built here. This is a $100 million plus research enterprise. It's become a national leader in understanding obesity, diabetes, and metabolic disease. We're one of only a handful of freestanding biomedical research centers in the country. We operate at a scale. We've achieved that by staying focused on high-impact science that directly improves human health. Now, what distinguishes us is the way we go about our research. We're integrated across three horizontals. We have molecular mechanisms, clinical trials, and real-world implementation. Our research has informed the development of every FDA-approved obesity medication, shaped national nutrition guidelines, and established the scientific foundation for treating metabolic disease as precisely as we treat cancer or heart disease. We're very proud to be part of LSU, and we understand that our success is tied to LSU's success. And as LSU pursues AAU membership, national research prominence, Pennington represents the kind of focused, competitive research campus that can help get you there. But I would add a caveat, that only if we can maintain that entrepreneurial speed and the operational flexibility that made all of this achievable. Before I pass off back to Courtney, I want to acknowledge that we exist because of a vision and generosity. CB Doc Pennington and Irene Pennington's instructions were simple. Build the best nutrition research center in the country, and that is what we have done here. Their granddaughter, Paula Pennington de Lebreton, is here with us today, continuing that legacy of support. And we're deeply grateful and take that founding mission seriously every day. So I look forward to our conversation today and to sharing more about where we're all headed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kerwin. And again, we want to thank our LSU Board of Supervisors, Chairman Ballard and Dr. Kane for getting us together and having this opportunity to discuss research and health. This segment is designed to spotlight two of LSU's most powerful engines of impact, research enterprise and our health mission, and to allow each candidate the opportunity to share their vision for how LSU can continue to drive innovation, improve lives, and strengthen Louisiana's future. As a comprehensive research university system, LSU generates nearly $500 million annually in research expenditures. This spans across agriculture, energy, coastal restoration, cybersecurity, biomedical innovation, and life sciences. And our research enterprise extends throughout the LSU system, including the A&M campus, Pennington, the LSU Ag Center, LSU Health Science New Orleans, LSU Health Shreveport, and of course our LSU regional campus, LSU A, LSU E, and LSU S. And at the same time, we create and produce dozens of healthcare-related academic programs across that same system. On every single campus, we have health-related producing programs. So much so that we produce the majority of Louisiana's health professionals, including physicians, nurses, dentists, other allied health professionals, and of course, healthcare administrators. These programs are not only shaping the future of our state's workforce, but also fuels Louisiana's healthcare infrastructure through training, discovery, and innovation. Our health and research missions intersect daily through deep partnerships, including those with our state leadership, state health departments, and our major hospital systems, including our Rural Hospital Coalition. Together, we are advancing cancer research, expanding clinical training, addressing our rural physician shortages, and strengthening the alignment between academia, policy, and practice. And so to kick off this conversation, Dr. Dalton, I would ask you to just share with us your vision for leading LSU through research, health, and service to the Louisiana people.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Courtney. It's great to be with you today and to learn a lot about Pennington and everything you've got going on at the university. That's a big question. I'm at that 30,000 foot view level right now and drinking from a bunch of fire hoses. I learn all about the great things that are going here. I'll introduce myself just a little bit, if that's okay, because it's quite relevant to Pennington in particular. I'm a drug discovery scientist. I've spent most of my career looking in endocrine pharmacology and endocrine drug discovery. My claim to fame is the discovery of selective androgen receptor modulators. I've done work on androgen receptor, its effects on body composition. I heard in the back of the room, metabolic disease. Worked on estrogen receptor beta selective analogs for the same thing for non-alcoholic steatohepatitis and some of those diseases. And really, I quite closely identify with a lot of your research that you're doing here around nutrition, diabetes, and hyperlipidemia, and all the metabolic diseases that go along with it. That wasn't the question, so I'll jump there. The reason I go there, and I got to stand up, I can't do this. I think I've been at the University of Michigan before coming to the Alabama. I've been provost there for 5 years now, and I've really had a great experience at both of those institutions, and really seen two different models for the academic medical enterprise and how they can be successful. University of Michigan at Ann Arbor has 7 health profession schools: pharmacy, public health, medicine, naturally, and the others. And it really brings together a powerful group of individuals in perhaps the biggest academic medical center in the U.S., focused on research, healthcare, patient access, and patient outcomes at the very least. As a dean of the College of Pharmacy at Michigan and chair of the Health Sciences Dean Council for 2 years, they're a part of the group that put together a precision medicine initiative, which is a collaboration between medicine, pharmacy, public health, and engineering. With the advent of wearable technologies, is this working anymore?
Can you switch microphones?
Is this better?
Yes.
All right, thanks. Precision health was a great way to get into how we can broaden just what's good, not what's only going on in the academic medical center, but across campus. And so it extended out to engineering, for example, and actually all the way out into music, theater, and dance with some of the things we were doing related to the opioid epidemic, and making sure that we actually put our music, theater, and dance department put together a musical on the opioid epidemic and how it affected families. But that's an example of how you can build across the entire university with a single seed crystal, whether it be in nutrition, cancer, as you've mentioned, or any other major disease. It's different in Alabama. The medical school in Alabama is located in Birmingham. We have the College for Community Health Sciences, which is my primary faculty appointment at Alabama. And there we focus mostly on rural medicine. So we have a really great group of internal researchers, but we also focus on building rural medical clinics across Alabama. We've got 7 of those so far. We hope to build about 10 more in the next 2 to 5 years in Tuscaloosa. And it's an example of how a state like Alabama, much like Louisiana, where most of our residents live in rural communities, we've got to take this knowledge that we're gaining and that we're building in the academic medical enterprise and make sure that translates out into care for the communities that surround us. So building research, build medical research, extending that into the broader community is really just near and dear to my heart. I've experienced that as myself as an assistant associate, full professor, is incentivizing it as a dean, incentivizing it as a provost, and that really gets into some of the things that I'm sure that I ask you to raise your hand and tell me what we need to do more of. It's support. That means staff. That means seed funding. It means pre-award, post-award staff. It means having the opportunity to bring in top-notch researchers to provide seminar programs and do all of those things. But at the end of the day, it's about people and making sure that we retain, recruit, and invest in the great people that we've got here at Pennington and all these other places that you talked about. I might sit down again, but maybe not.
You never know. Well, thank you for that, Dr. Dalton. So we're going to do round robin, and let me just share who's going to be asking those questions. We have Dr. Twilley, who serves as our VP for Research and Economic Development, Dr. Michael Salesi, who serves as a VP for Agriculture, Dr. David Guzik, who serves as the Chief Research Officer, Dr. Nelson, who serves as the Chancellor for LSU Health Science in New Orleans, and of course, Dr. Kerwin, who you've already heard from. But Dr. Kerwin, can you just kick us off with your first question, and we'll do all the way across the board.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Is it working? Okay. Thank you. Well, we'll start simple with an existential question. So I want to start with the IDC crisis and discussions in Washington about capping indirect research costs at 15% across NIH, NSF, DOE, DOD is of concern to all research universities. LSU campuses, like most research universities, had negotiated rates around 50–55%. So, a cap of 15% would cost campuses here tens of millions of dollars annually and upend our existing research infrastructure. But my question to you relates to the Joint Associations Group that have proposed the FAIR model. Yeah, and this is an alternative to the audience that emphasizes transparency and directly allocates research support costs to specific projects. It's being proposed as an alternative to the NIH indirects. But my question to you, Dr. Dalton, is how would you work with Congress, federal agencies, and peer institutions to ensure LSU's research enterprise survives regardless of which funding model ultimately prevails?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns in that area, as everyone on the stage is familiar with, and I'm sure that the audience is too. I just came back from a conference this summer out in Boise for Provost, and the FAIR model and other models for indirect cost funding were a major part of that conversation. Your question is about how do I advocate for our needs up the chain, and that starts. I think that's the role of the president. It starts with conversations with the Board of Supervisors, with our governmental affairs staff, eventually with our state legislature, but more so, we've got to get to our senators, our House of Representatives members, to have the conversation about just what that means to what we're doing on a daily basis in terms of research. At Alabama, we looked at some of those models, and I don't think we're going to land at 15%. I would hope that you agree the same. It's not going to be 55%. Maybe it's a positional thing. It's not going to be 55%. So maybe the FAIR model or others like it are going to be enough to fill in that gap. But the problem, as it is with much of the things we're dealing with right now, is not the proposal. It's the unknown that comes with it. So when we don't know what it's going to be next year, we don't know what it's going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, we unfortunately are placed in the position we have to start making decisions about what the future is next year. Because if we don't know that 55% indirect cost is coming, how do we plan? I think as universities that we've got to talk to our state legislatures at that point and let them know just how important that funding is, and not just for research, which is a difficult thing for many outside our disciplines to understand. But what it means for employment at the university, what it means for employment in the communities around us, and what ultimately that means for translation of the results that we do, the science that we do, out into the community, which is, I'm sure, why the Pennington family started this process in the first place, to make sure that the research that we do has community impact.
Thank you. Dr. Nelson, you want to take the next one?
I guess we're just passing this around. Well, very good.
You have another one that's right next to you that should be working again.
Okay. I think the ones that doesn't work, but that's fine. So just to add to the challenges, so another cut that's coming or being contemplated is the cut to the 340B program in terms of pharmaceuticals. I'm actually going to have a Zoom with Senator Cassidy on Friday about this, because the impact to certain hospitals that serve the underserved, which we do, you do, is going to be in the millions and millions of dollars. Add to that also the proposed cuts in Medicaid in terms of the plans that are being proposed, another 11 million people off Medicaid. And as you know, your hospital at UAB, same as ours here, really serve a disproportionate number of the underserved. And those costs tend to be higher as well. So between all these cuts, it could be quite dramatic in terms of how it affects our teaching and our research enterprise. So in the same way, I guess, you know, how do we best advocate for this? The other question I had as well is, in your current structure, in your present position, does the research enterprise at UAB present to you or not?
It does not.
Okay.
Well, yeah, thanks for the question. And the answer is much the same. It's really a matter of communication with our legislature. I think we're seeing it now. We're starting to see some of the state governments make investments in the SNAP programs that have gone away. I just came out of a meeting where I think we're on, is it day 30 or 31 of the government shutdown right now. So we're beginning to feel the impact of that. Hopefully it doesn't go too much longer. But that's a preview into what's coming. If SNAP has gone away during the government shutdown, if a year from now, 6 months from now, we're looking at dramatic changes to Medicaid, that's going to hit the bottom line in a hurry. I'm not a CEO of a health system. I can phone a friend and solve that problem, but I'll be relying heavily on the people that are involved in those discussions, and really how do we adapt to it? Tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars going away is not just an impact on the university. It's an impact on the patients we serve, and I don't think that there's a state senator, a U.S. senator, a U.S. House of Representative that wants to see that happen to their community. So I'm hoping that a sense of rationality will eventually come to these conversations, but much as in prior to the answer to the prior question, it's the unknowns right now that are causing consternation, and we don't know quite how to adapt just yet.
Check. You can hear me back? Okay. So I don't know if some of you noticed that when Dr. Dalton approached the stage, he could have gone up the step, the rest of us did, but he jumped up onto the stage. So my first question is whether you ran.
I did not. I pole vaulted for a little while, but.
Courtney took you 30,000 feet asking about research. I'll take down a little bit, but still on the subject of vision. There has been substantial research.
Hold it straight ahead, I've learned.
I think it's how you're holding it.
10 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. There has been substantial growth at University of Alabama in the research portfolio. You've been provost there for 5 years. I suspect you had something to do with that. So my question is, what is the vision? What is your vision for research at LSU over, say, the next 5 years? And from some of the lessons learned in this Alabama experience, how could those be brought to bear in helping us achieve that vision?
Thanks for the question. It's working again for 10 more seconds. We'll try it. I've had a variety of experiences in that regard, and to the question from my left, the Vice President for Research, I chaired the committee for his search at Alabama, but he reports to the President like I did, but we're very close collaborators in this regard, and I imagine it's going to have to be the same with you and the leaders here. It's a team sport. We're in it to win it, so to speak. I've seen a lot of things that work with different levels of success over my career, as I imagine you have. I always come back to the answer of people first. We've got to make sure that we're making rational hires, building critical mass in the areas that we want to excel at, and doing so in a very purposeful manner. There's all kinds of incentives or programs that we can build into the enterprise. You've probably heard me talk a little bit about the MCube program at Michigan we had, which was a way for 3 faculty across 3 departments and 2 colleges to come together with a big, high-risk, high-reward idea without a proposal, but to put in some money, get some money from the college, and get some money from the central administration to move forward. And $60,000 to $90,000 as seed funding can really move the needle a lot. I tend to invest in programs where people have skin in the game. If you've got a big idea, then I'd like to see that you have some resources or are willing to put in some resources to make sure that it's successful. I found in my time that when you've got everyone invested in the same idea, when everyone has skin in the game, and that goes from the president to the college to the dean to the department chair to the individual faculty member, we all have to realize that we know how difficult resources are to come by, and we have to highly value those when we do put in those funds. So it starts with building teams, making sure we've got teams that can win, putting resources and investments in front of them where they can come together and create preliminary data, create that paper, that idea that moves us forward to a grant submission and hopefully a grant award. And from there, it comes back to as well as to making sure that we're setting very high expectations and rewarding effort and success when it comes. It's easy to realize that you had 10 faculty get a NSF Career Award last year, but it's also just as easy, unfortunately, to lose those faculty to somewhere else during the process. And so we've got to make sure we're focused on retaining people as well, and that's faculty and staff. And I think a lot about pre-award and post-award staff as well. One of the greatest investments I made at Michigan, which I think was greatly responsible for some of the increases that we've seen, and I've done some of the same things at Alabama. There's nothing better than having some pre-award and post-award staff that are working with the individual departments and faculty members to think about ideas, to help them put the finishing touches on grants. I've been a faculty member, and I know how painful it is to have to sit down the night before the grant is due and put together the darn resources and environment page or justify some of all the other standardized questions that contribute to this high indirect cost rate that we need. So we've got to find ways to facilitate that, make it easier even internally to submit grants and make sure we've got the staff who are the heartbeat of this institution. They're the ones. I've met a staff member earlier today. She's been here 28 years, and with that comes a lot of expertise. And we've got to maintain that at the staff level as well to make sure we continue to be successful.
Thank you. We talk a lot about service to community, and so let's turn it over to ag, because that is a major component of Louisiana's economic development and service across the state.
Thank you,
Dr.
Courtney.
Celesi?
Good afternoon, Dr. Palmer. As you mentioned, I'm representing the LSU Ag Center, and so my questions are going to be sort of ag science perspective. I will preface it by saying I drafted my questions as to what I would want to ask the new LSU president. So I realize the position you're in today, and you may not have full knowledge to answer definitively, but we would be interested in your impressions. First, just the Louisiana ag industry generates about $12 billion of direct income every year. It supports about $30 billion of economic activity in the state. It's one of the largest industries in Louisiana. In the previous LSU administration's research agenda, agriculture was one of 5 areas identified as a priority research area for the university, along with biomedical, the coast, defense, and energy. And I mention that because our prior president actively went out and promoted and talked about the importance of research in those 5 areas. And when the president does that, that counts for a lot. It impacts the faculty on the campuses, and it also, greatly impacts our clientele in the state. So my question is, based on your knowledge or impressions of Louisiana, its primary industries and economy, and given the institutional commitment required to support scientific research on a large scale, as well as the increased competitiveness of limited federal research dollars, do you believe that the field of agricultural sciences should remain a major research priority for LSU? Or if you'd want to answer that more generally, what would be your thought process to identify specific fields of science that you think should be a priority research area for LSU?
I don't get a lot of questions I can answer with one word, but yes. No, I think it's clear. I mean, the 5 areas that President Tate talked about are core to what this university does, and it's some of its shining stars. I don't see a reason from this 30,000-foot view that I have that I'd change that one iota. When you think about agriculture, I think about bioscience, crop bioscience, biofuels. I think about animal husbandry. I think about everything that goes along with fiber production and everything like that. So we've got to, as a land-grant university that represents this state, and with a $12 billion industry that generates $30 billion in economic impact, that's the biggest capital yes in bold letters I've ever written.
We talked about research indirect costs, and so Dr. Twilley, we're going to turn it over to you.
Yep. Well, I just laid down my book because all my questions have been taken up. But no, it's been very good to hear some of the, particularly with the federal turbulence and your ideas of research. I represent the flagship campus, so one way of thinking of it is I represent all the research minus medical and agriculture, which has been over the last 3 years about a 14% per year increase. We're about $334 million just on the flagship campus, and that's very diverse. NSF is our /1. Right behind that is NIH, and then the other federal agencies. So we're very proud, and we've been 17% per year when you collectively add up the campuses represented on this stage. And I was glad to hear your comment about how you would incentivize the growth that we aspire. We're not satisfied where we are. But my question, and I've been doing this for 3 years as vice president for the flagship campus, and the question I have is that, and I looked at your resume, so I think you might be very well prepared to give us some thoughts, is that while our research enterprise and bringing in dollars and doing research through expenditures has been going up, our commercialization is flat. Our commercialization actually enterprise collectively across the campuses is flat. And with a lot of emphasis on patents and very little on commercializing and actually licensing that research. So what's the strategy to incentivize commercialization that's part of the research enterprise?
Thanks for the question. I think it'll work again for at least 10 seconds. We'll go from there. Yeah, I've had a lot of experience in that realm, as you know. I think I haven't confirmed exactly yet, but I think I was the first faculty member ever at Ohio State to take an entrepreneurial leave of absence. So I discovered a couple drugs in my lab. I mentioned them before, and took a 2-year entrepreneurial leave of absence. I was about 50% supported on federal grants at that time, so had a unique situation where I spent 1 week at Ohio State and 1 weekend within the company. that we'd started. I learned a lot about the entrepreneurial patent and licensing ecosystem during that time, and it really does color the way I think about that. Success is hard. One is you have to recognize that a patent is success, and you have to have a promotion and tenure system that recognizes the importance of a patent and that it's a unique thing that you've put out. I can tell you I discovered my first drug in 1997, the first year I was the same year I was up for promotion to associate professor. And so you're always caught in that bind between publish in Paris or patent and develop. And so you really always have to find a way to lean in to publishing as a biomedical scientist. I've been thankful, grateful, lucky during my time to really associate with some fantastic intellectual property lawyers. And I'm really a strong believer in the fact that if you've got a good intellectual property team that's out in front of it, that you can continue to publish. You can continue to patent, and those two can live in the same world. I publish just as much as vice president and chief scientific officer of the company as I did as a faculty member, and it's due to good patent counsel. Now the flip side of that is the earlier you patent, you put yourself in a bind, and you've got 12 months once you submit your U.S. patent. You've got about 3 years after that to go from the U.S. patent to the PCT, the international patent, and then there's a very short timeline thereafter where you have to start filing nationally for your patents. When I was doing this, a U.S. patent cost about $10,000 to $15,000 to move forward. It's more expensive than that today. The PCT at the next level, the same cost, if not just a little bit more, $25,000 to $30,000. If you really got an invention, you go to the national stage internationally. There, if you're going to cover the major commercial countries, you've got to file 30 to 40 patents. So suddenly that expense of $15,000 to $30,000 becomes $500,000. So you better be making smart bets. And the other thing is you better be doing is moving fast, because the universities, the ones I've been associated with, they're oftentimes willing to make that $15,000 to $30,000 investment for the U.S. patent and the PCT patent application. Not too many companies will bite on that $500,000 bill. So the minute you file that first patent, you've set in course a timeline where you've got to find a commercial partner. And that's where most patents fall down. So the answer is a couple things. One is we've got to incentivize that behavior. And that means really, quite frankly, in the annual review and promotion and tenure process, you've got to value that you're creating knowledge and patenting it. And then we've got to have a system established, I'm not sure what you have today, that evaluates those patents that are coming in. And unfortunately, you've got to make some smart bets and invest not in all the patents that come forward, but some that you really think have promise. And for lack of a better measure that's out there, commercial interest in your patents is a great barometer for what legs it's going to have moving forward. So that's a very detailed answer, but I've played a lot in this pool, and it's a difficult thing that universities must get better at.
Yep. Thank you for that response. And just to put it into context, there is increased opportunity here in Louisiana for VC and state investment in the enterprise, as Dr. Twilley will attest to. So there's increased opportunity, and it is an area that we do need to improve in. I have written my questions because I know I have to ask these to all the candidates, and unlike Dr. Nelson, I will not remember it word for word. So my next question relates to research campus autonomy and entrepreneurial leadership. Pennington Biomedical and the Ag Center are considered specialized research campuses without student enrollments. Pennington Biomedical has achieved a national prominence through primarily mission-focused leadership and operational flexibility. As president, How would you balance the system-wide coordination to assure LSU research campuses maintain the entrepreneurial agility, the distinct culture, the decision-making speed required to compete nationally for talent, for funding, and partnerships? And can you share some examples from your experience where you successfully protected high-performing research campuses?
Thanks for the question. I mean, it starts with people. I know I'm redundant or repetitive in that matter, but we've got to have the right leadership. I mentioned Michigan before. One of the things I really valued as a Michigan dean was the autonomy that the system brought to the dean. That allows me I know my faculty better than my provost did. I know what their research is and have overlapping research in many interests, in many cases. So I think choosing the right leaders, having great leaders like you across the room is a great starting point. And I trust that you know the faculty, the staff, the research scientists, the postdocs here, and you know where some of those growth areas are going to be. And so I value autonomy, I value local decision making. I think at the presidential level, at the provost level, at the chancellor level, we've got to start making decisions about investments and competing in investments. You can ask the deans that work with me at Alabama or the faculty that I've worked with before. If people generally ask me for resources, I ask them what they're willing to give up to move this new project forward. Because I think just as well as we have to be focused on growth, we've got to be thinking about the things that perhaps that we've been doing before that we might have to do less of. I know you've heard me talk about those three little buckets that I think of about things we're doing today that we need to do more of, things that we're doing today that we probably should do less of, and things that we haven't figured out to do that others are doing that we better start doing if we want to be successful. So I look at it as providing as much autonomy as one can to Pennington and to the Ag campus and others. But I think there's an understanding too that I would hope that we sit in a room as a team and have those discussions about the 10 good things that are going on, the 10 bad things that are going on, and thinking out loud, which I've talked about a lot before, and make some decisions about where we should be making investments. And sometimes those are hard decisions, and seldom will we leave the room perhaps with everybody in agreement. That's always the goal, but oftentimes that's not the case. And I think that at least if we walk out of the room knowing all the options that were on the table, the good, the bad, and the ugly of them, that hopefully we can walk out of that room singing from the same songbook as I've said before. Autonomy is important. Hiring the right people is important. As I mentioned, having the staff and resources to be successful. Unfortunately, we don't have an unlimited money tree growing out in the back that I know of, so we're going to have to be careful in making some of those decisions.
Thank you. Dr. Nelson?
So clearly, the lifeblood of any research enterprise are the graduate students. Without those, many of us wouldn't have any measure of success. Given the current environment in Washington and over the past decade or so, the interest in the number of people going into those programs has decreased steadily. Now with current conversation and decreasing in grad plus loans and things like that, it's going to be increasingly difficult, challenged in order to recruit these talented individuals. How would you suggest we go about dealing with that issue?
Yeah, I agree with you. I can be quoted as many times as saying I look at the graduate students as the research engine, the engine of the research enterprise. I've trained, had 22 PhD students that have graduated from my laboratory, and I quite frankly can't think of a more motivated person in this world than a graduate student that's in their third or fourth or fifth year trying to get their PhD and get out and get a JOB. I've learned as much, if not more, from my graduate students and postdocs than they've learned from me. And they truly are that engine of creativity and getting things done. So I'll start there just to give you a sense for how much I value graduate education. And I've had some great postdocs as well that bring a new expertise into the lab that perhaps I didn't have myself. For me, that was mass spectrometry 15 years ago. So I really highly value graduate education. I think the challenges are right in front of us. We're seeing discussions now about limiting visas to 4 years. That will crush graduate education. I don't know about you, but a lot of very few of the folks that I went to graduate school with, especially in the biomedical sciences, finished in 4 years. It's the same thing in the humanities and social sciences, engineering and business and otherwise. We're also talking at the faculty level about charging $100,000 for an H-1B visa. So I think we've got to advocate for just how important our graduate students are to the university, and that's domestic students and international students. The value that they bring to the university, the work ethic they bring to the university, and then what they take out of the university when they go into the careers of their own. Back to the conversation here to my right about entrepreneurship and patents. Some of the most creative minds I've ever seen have been graduate students that I've worked with. So we've got to find a way to keep that competitive. I know President Tate, my predecessor, I hope, made a big investment in graduate stipends. When I read about that several years ago, I was jealous. That's a great first step. But we've also got to make sure that they have the other support that they need, and that's communities, it's research support, I mentioned seminars and things like that, but it's creating programs that help graduate students and postdocs not just finish their master's degree or their PhD, but connect with jobs and the next step in their career.
Thank you. Dr. Guzik?
So while you were most recently at University of Alabama, and of course UAB is in the Alabama system, but not directly a part of University of Alabama, here we have 2 academic health centers that are part of LSU. So drawing on your experience from Michigan that you mentioned and Ohio State, and also picking up a bit on Dr. Nelson's comment about graduate students, meaning in basic sciences, but also extending it to recognize that broader education in the context of residents and fellows at these medical centers and the clinical practice that's delivered. How can you take advantage at LSU of these 2 academic health centers that are part of LSU to advance the vision of LSU broadly in the state?
Yeah, I'm still learning the system, as you know, and I think it's the geographic separation is one barrier that we have to figure out. That comes through shared leadership and decision making and making sure that we're at least all aligned towards the same priorities. And I know you spend a great deal of time on that already. I've had a lot of questions in my time interviewing here about organizational structure. I don't know what the answer is to that. I imagine that's one of the things that we'll look at early on. But at the end of the day, regardless of organizational structure, it comes back to the leadership of those group and making sure that we have the resources, as I mentioned before, pre-award, post-award support, graduate student programs, postdoc programs. We started what I called a super postdoc program was at Michigan, and I've replicated that at Alabama now, where we bring in postdocs and salaries generally range between $50,000 and $55,000. If you can create a super postdoc program, it's got an additional $10,000 to $15,000 salary on top of that, give them a little bit of independent research funds themselves. We have to start thinking about not only investing in them and creating super postdocs, but giving them an eye towards what moving on to the next step of their career is as an assistant professor, a research assistant professor, and things like that. I know I haven't directly answered your question because it's tough from 30,000 feet, but it comes to shared identity, first of all, which you've got, and then it's got to be shared priorities and prioritization of what you want to do, and then providing the resources at each one of those institutions to be successful. That means making investments and sometimes stop doing things, as I talked about before, so that you can invest in the things you want to do.
LSU is often referred to as the flagship university in Louisiana, as it's the leader in undergraduate and graduate education, as well as the leader in research. LSU is also the state's land-grant university. The land-grant mission is a three-part mandate of teaching, research, and extension for public universities to provide affordable higher education, conduct practical research, and serve the public through engagement and outreach. All three parts of the land-grant mission are equally important and support each other in furthering the overall mission of the university. Do you consider the three-part land-grant mission to still be relevant in today's world of higher education generally, and more specifically relevant to the success of the overall LSU mission?
Yes. It's interesting. I was actually online, I think it was 3 nights ago, actually reading the Morrill Act of, I think it was 1878, and sort of where all this started for land grants. And you didn't exactly quote the language that was out of the Morrill Act, but pretty darn close. And it talks about education of the industrial people, I think, of the U.S., and it also relates to military education and preparing our state to be successful and bringing that not just from Baton Rouge or Shreveport or New Orleans or Eunice out to everywhere across the state. So I don't think there's a more important time in the world to be a land-grant institution, to be quite frank with you. And that bleeds all the way from agriculture, which you've talked about quite a bit, but it bleeds into K through 12 education, family wellness. I had a great talk with Ken Schaefer the other day about, should we be bleeding out some of the things that we're doing in energy through the land grant and the extension service aspects of what we're doing at the university. I think those are all great ideas. And in addition to that, I've mentioned it before, we live in this turbulent time of the compact between the higher ed and the general public. And what better way to learn from our communities, be educated by them, provide education to them, provide resources to them, and start to bridge this divide between what the opinions of higher education are and what we can really bring to the state than now from land-grant university.
Thank you. Dr. Twilley, we'll turn it over to you for the last question before Dr. Dalton can give some final remarks.
Great. So my question I asked before focused on the percentage increase in our research expenditures, which is a focus on using money as a metric of research excellence. But as we know, it's scholarship that really raises the bar of recognition. And as I mentioned before, the flagship campus that I represent, scholarship extends from English to engineering. And so my question is, how, as we talk about research, how do we make sure we're inclusive in all the achievements in a diverse, community like we have at LSU?
Well, unfortunately, you're making me think about U.S. News World Report rankings now, which is one of my least favorite things to think about, because I think we can get, sometimes the tail can wag the dog if you start thinking too much about the metrics to be important or rise in the rankings. You can also look at AAU data and metrics that they consider important to be considered as a member of the AAU. Sure, it's easy to measure grant dollars, grant submissions, and the number of grants that have gone in. But, I think if you look at academic analytics is a great resource tool, by the way, just a piece of software. But if you look at that, and if you look at U.S. News World Report, we'd start talking about citations. How important was your work is. We all know what a H index is and an I-10 index and what it is on Google Scholar. But we also, some of the other metrics are the number of books that we publish. And that's what comes out of the humanities or compositions, pieces of music, pieces of art. the world is not very good at those latter pieces there. We can count the number of books more easily than we can know the number of music compositions or other creative works that come out of our humanities and the like. So those are some of the things that we can do. AAU wants you to measure a whole host of things. They want to know the number of National Academy members that you have on campus, the number of national awards that your faculty have done. And I tend not to think as much about what those metrics are, but keep our eye on the ball. Don't let the tail wag the dog. Let's be successful. As I've talked about a couple of days, we want to be winners. We want to build teams that win. And if you keep your eye on the ball of, we want students to come in, we want them to be successful, we want them to graduate, we want them to get jobs, we want faculty to come in, we want them to be great teachers, we want them to build their scholarship, publish books, do journal articles. That comes into the resources that we provide with them, comes into the annual reviews that we do to tell them what we value and how to do that, comes into the promotion and tenure reviews that we do to help encourage those behaviors. And also it blends into what we do in terms of faculty salaries and how we reward people and keep the best and the brightest and do targeted hires of small groups to bring in critical mass in different areas. That's a really complex answer to your question, but we've got to keep our eye on the ball. We're here for research, teaching, and service, and we all know what that means, but we've got to think about how we get better at that, and the metrics will follow. But that doesn't mean you can't follow those metrics and talk about them in the annual review and set a goal that for a business school, for example, that we want to publish in aspirational journals. That's a great metric in business. How many books did we publish out of our religious studies department? How many new musical compositions came out of our School of Music, Theater, and Dance? It's easy to look at physics and astronomy and engineering and even biomedicine and count the number of grants and dollars, but it's a really abbreviated look or short-sighted look about what scholarship means at a great university like LSU.
Thank you. Thank you guys for those questions. Dr. Dalton, we want to give you a few minutes, 2 minutes, to do final remarks to all of our faculty members and staff who are focused on research, all of our industry partners who are focused on healthcare, and those students who are looking to increase our healthcare workforce. What are some final remarks that you have for us?
I was just hoping you'd ask me if I had any final remarks, and I could finally answer a one-word no. But, thanks for being here today and giving me the opportunity to interview at LSU for this presidency. You've got a great university, and it's a really exciting and a great honor for me to be in part of this conversation. As a STEM biomedical scientist, an entrepreneur, I think, and someone who really deeply values what public universities, land grant, and flagship universities bring. LSU is a shining example of that, certainly in the state of Louisiana, and I want to think we want to make sure that it becomes a shining example of that that's recognized outside the state of Louisiana. That starts with the South and the SEC, and it grows from there to perhaps AAU recognition. That's a long way away. I think there's a lot of things that need to be accomplished before then. But you have to shoot for the stars if you're going to land on the moon. And I think that's the thing that we need to think about. Let's build teams that win, be winners, and focus on education, research, and service. And I've been around the block, not my first rodeo, and been at some great places and hope to be at another great place, which is Louisiana State University. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Well, on behalf of the LSU family, we appreciate you being here and your interest in serving our university. So we appreciate it. Everyone who joined us today, thank you. And on your table is a feedback QR code, as well as probably on the screen shortly. Please take time to fill that out, and we appreciate you all being here. And again, thank y'all, and thank you, Dr. Dalton.